News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
You're with GB News and our top story. There have been tributes tonight for a much-loved 15-year-old girl with a bright future after she was stabbed to death on her way to school this morning. Emergency services were called to Croydon in South London at about 8:30 a.m. An eyewitness described seeing a bus driver and a passer-by trying to resuscitate her. Chief Superintendent Andy Britton said a 17-year-old boy has been arrested who was known to the victim.
This is every parent's worst nightmare. And I know the officers who responded this morning, along with our emergency service colleagues, are devastated at the victim's death. This is an emotion I share, and I know people across Croydon will be feeling the same. The victim's family has been informed, and our thoughts are with them at what must be an incredibly difficult time.
Well, in other news today, this company, GB News, has suspended its presenter, Dan Wootton. It's after offensive comments were made by Lawrence Fox during an interview last night on this channel. He made a series of derogatory remarks about political journalist Ava Evans. Lawrence Fox has also been suspended with immediate effect and taken off air. In a statement, GB News called the comments totally unacceptable, adding they did not reflect the company's values. GB News has issued a formal apology to Miss Evans and launched a full investigation. The UK's largest untapped oil and gas field, Rosebank in Scotland, has been approved for development. That's despite a row over climate concerns. Regulators say net zero considerations have been taken into account. But Scotland's First Minister Humza Yousaf says he's disappointed the project's been given the go-ahead. The government, though, says they welcome the decision, saying it'll generate billions for the economy. The United Nations has rejected the Home Secretary's calls for international law on refugees to be changed. In a speech in Washington, Suella Braverman suggested yesterday that the UN 1951 Refugee Convention needed updating. She was arguing that fearing discrimination for being gay or being a woman shouldn't be enough to qualify for international refugee status. The UK's first drug consumption room, where users can take illegal drugs under medical supervision, has been approved. The pilot facility, planned for Glasgow's East End, is backed by the Scottish Government as a way to tackle the country's drugs deaths crisis. The £2.3 million facility will allow users to take their own illegal drugs in a hygienic environment with medical staff on hand for support. And Storm Agnes has been busy sweeping into the UK tonight, the southwest of England in particular, bringing winds of up to 63 miles an hour, which were recorded actually on the Isles of Scilly. National Grid dealt with power outages at hundreds of properties, but many have been reconnected this evening. The Met Office has issued its yellow wind warning, which is in place until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, saying it can lead to an increased risk of flooding. Northern Ireland, Scotland and parts of southwest England are the worst affected tonight so far. You're with GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Thank you, Polly. Hello and welcome to Headliners, your nightly run through the next day's news stories with three comedians. I'm one of them. I'm Leo Kerrison. Just for the absence of doubt, I'm sexually attracted to all feminist commentators. Joining me to try and get to the end of the hour without getting in trouble are Cressida Wetton and Lewis Schaefer. How are you both doing?
Very well, thank you.
Uneventful day?
Uneventful day, not a lot's happened, no chaos here.
You speak for yourself as for being a comedian. There's too much pressure, but it puts too much pressure. And as for me being a feminist comedian, can you be attracted to me anyway?
Yes, I definitely am. Anyway, let's have a look through Thursday's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with stabbed to death in her uniform on the way to school. The Guardian has HMRC investigating tax affairs of one of the Tory party's largest donors. The Eye has Labour U-turn on plan to axe private school charity status. The Times leads with Number 10 backs threat to leave rights convention. The Telegraph has officer who shot jailbreak gangster faces sack. And the Daily Star has grow your own nashers. And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages, starting with the Times, Cressida.
OK, Number 10 backs threat to leave rights convention. Braverman delivers warning shot to Strasbourg. So Suella is saying that we just might leave altogether, and Number 10's gone, yeah, all right, fine, we could do that. We had the hearing's going to start on October the 9th with the Supreme Court deciding on whether or not we can do the Rwanda plan. We've been thwarted thus far, but I mean, it might be that we can. We might find out by November that we can start sending people to Rwanda, but Braverman thinks, no, we won't get away with it. They'll stop us again. There'll be more challenges. So we might just leave and do our own thing. And she makes the point that, look, we can do human rights on our own. We don't need them. Look at Japan. They're doing fine, she says. So,
I mean, this could be brinkmanship. This could be sabre-rattling by Suella and by Number 10 to try and force the Supreme Court to do our bidding, which seems fair, after all, Lewis. I mean, it's what the elected government in the UK has decided to do. So why is Europe making decisions for us?
Why are we even thinking about those people? I mean, it's not right for me to say because I'm an American and I just think Europe is just like garbage. And I just think that way.
It's got worse since you arrived, obviously.
Well, it has in a way. I mean, when I was growing up, we thought, oh, those Europeans were. Well, even in America, there's a huge group of people who thought that there's something dodgy about those people. They were just like German nudists. They didn't shave under their arms. They didn't use deodorant. We knew that they were no good. Even though lately I don't, I like a girl that doesn't shave under her arms or use deodorant.
So there's not much entente cordiale here. I mean, Chris.
No, they're bad.
Are you asking me to come back to that?
Yeah, please.
I don't know if I can. What was your point? You would let people go to Rwanda if they didn't shave their arm. What?
I would say this. There's two groups. The war is going on, and the war basically is us as British people, GB News, us British people, versus Europe, which calls themselves the World Economic Forum. But what they really mean is, it means European. It's the attitude of the Germans and the French combined. And that's what the World Court is. Where is the World Court? It's in Strasbourg. That's in French.
Yeah.
France.
And I mean, the Brexit was the UK decoupling itself from Europe.
Yeah.
But obviously, the ECHR is separate to that, and it predates the European Union.
I am not saying. Can I apologise to people out there? I'm not saying that Europe is all bad. There's lots of good stuff there.
Yeah.
But we have to make a choice. Do you stand for Britain, or do you stand for some kind of global rubbish, open borders stuff?
Can't we stand for both? Anyway, there's another story in there from things that matter to things that antimatter.
Yeah, well, this is antimatter falls in line with the theory of gravity, and that's where I stop reading. Basically, because anytime you mention gravity, you know you're dealing with Sir Isaac Newton, and that's 400 years ago. It's like let's do the history of music and stop with Mozart. No, there's been lots of stuff. There's Puff Daddy, and there's Elton John.
You use a new type of gravity.
Yeah, gravity is the least important force of nature. There's the electrical bond, there's nuclear bond. Gravity is, look what I'm doing. I'm moving my arm.
But getting away from your mad ramblings, I mean, Cressida, they've found that antimatter is subject to gravity. It obeys the law of gravity.
Day, haven't they? I'm still trying to struggle with what it is. Antimatter is a mirror version of ordinary matter. It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some of the basic properties, like electrical charge, are reversed. I don't know what to say about this.
It's like opposites world.
It's like opposites world, yeah.
Anyway, moving on. What's on the front cover of the Telegraph, Lewis?
Velikovsky. Officer who shot jailbreak gangster faces the sack. This is an incredible story on a lot of different levels, obviously. One is, this has been going on for 8 years. No one's really heard about this. It hasn't been in the news. They basically, this is a country that suppresses information until something big happens, like 300 armed police go on strike, and the city of London is left without any armed police.
And the army has to step in, the SAS has to step in to fill the gap.
And this is caused because there was a guy 8 years ago, a policeman, who shot a guy who was trying to free some prisoners in a court at one of the Crown courts, and he killed them.
Break some people who are being held.
And he killed them, and so there's a debate whether it was justified. The guy was put on trial, an actual trial, and they said he didn't cause any problems. But the police are going, hey, we're still firing you.
They're still firing him.
And so that's not nice.
I mean, Cresta, are you worried that this is going to lead to less safety on the streets of the UK?
I read a story this week. A lot of armed officers apparently are looking at Australia because they've got a clearer set of rules.
Yeah.
And they're saying, well, we might just be off. We might fill in our visa forms and see if we can.
And it's sunny, and there's bigger portions of food.
Which is what you want, isn't it? So I mean, it's not a job I would want to do.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. If you're making split-second life or death decisions, and now you've got things hanging over you, like the threat of going to jail for murder if you make the wrong call in the heat of the moment.
I mean, the counter is you don't want people with guns who don't get held to account either, do you? There is a bit of a tension there.
I don't know. That sounds
you can't just have wrong uns signing up.
That sounds pretty good to me. Anyway, what have the Eye got on front of their cover, Chris?
OK, Labour U-turns on plan to axe private school charity status, but the 20% VAT charge will remain if Labour get in. They are still going to... they want to add this tax to private schools. And, of course, all the private schools are saying, hey, we can't afford that, you'll ruin us. And so there's this tension between people that go to private schools are poshos, they can afford anything, and then versus people saying, no, I just got my kids in to better them, and So I don't. What did you? Were your kids privately educated?
Well, no, but we do what we do in America, which is the greatest country in the world after Britain. But you buy a house in a nice school district that is in control of the education. It's a very different thing.
This is how it works here as well with the good state schools.
Yeah.
So instead of the money going to the school, the money goes to an estate agent, which seems a bizarre angular system.
No, it isn't a bizarre. People should have community control over their school. Here's the problem: is if let's say they eliminate all these private schools, those kids got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Where are they going to go? And they're going to go to state schools, and so those budgets are stretched so that more money is going to come. It's a false economy.
Well, yeah, and it's totally going to backfire. So the Labour think it's going to raise about £1.5 billion, but in reality, it's going to cost billions because, as Lewis says, you know, the people who are scrimping and saving to send their kids to fancy fee-paying schools, a lot of them are, you know, will marginally be able to afford it, so they'll have to pull their kids out of school when the 20% tax gets levied on top, and then those kids will have to be educated at state school, which is going to cost us lots and lots and lots of money, which just seems ridiculous. At the moment, we've got a good system. The people who send their kids to fee-paying schools also pay for a place in state school that they're not using, so they're already, you know, paying their fair share and some.
I'm with you 100%. And because of the way things are going right now, that those kids who get a much better education at a private school, you assume, they're being denied places at some of the best universities, so it doesn't impact anything on people who are going to the...
Interesting.
The system's broken. I should probably reference as well, GB News is in crisis over sexist rant with Lawrence Fox, I think, and Dan Wootton both suspended. But yeah, nobody's talking about that in the office.
No, we're not allowed to discuss
this section with the Daily Star, Lewis. What have they got in the front?
This is Grow Your Own Nashers, and this is about medication. All the papers, they just push drugs in Japan. People lose their teeth, and there's actually stuff growing underneath the teeth called these tooth buds. I never even heard of this thing, and this company in Japan says that they're going to be able to suppress a gene which stops the growth of the tooth buds, and so people who have a deformity of some kind from childbirth where they don't have any teeth, they'll be allowed to grow teeth, and it may...
Or what about if you've just lost teeth, you know, for example, if you're British?
Yeah, if you lost teeth, right. And
we don't know how long it will take, though, do we? I assume it's still quicker to go and get some fake ones.
Yes, it is, and I think maybe people should, you know, as you know, I've stopped basically using toothpaste, and I've basically stopped brushing my teeth, because the most important thing...
Because you've seen this article.
No, because people have to know that the number one thing that causes tooth decay is sugar.
I can't believe that of all the conspiracy theories to start, you're starting one about toothpaste. But anyway, that's it for part one. After the break, we have a lefty meltdown over Suella, criminals running prisons, and Joe Biden's impeachment. See you in a couple of minutes.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6 is Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Kearson. I'm still here with Cressida Wetton and Lewis Schaefer, kicking things off in this section with the Express, and lefties are complaining that Suella lacks empathy. Good. She's not a children's nurse. She's the Home Secretary, Cressida.
Suella Braverman slaps down claims she lacks compassion after lefty meltdown over speech. She says it's simply untrue to claim that she lacks compassion after her big speech in Washington demanding changes to the UN Refugee Convention. So Suella is saying, look, this is out of date. We've got to have a look at this and change the terms. It was written for the Geneva Convention. It's mid-20th century stuff. It's no longer fit for purpose. Let's have a look at that. And people are saying that's not compassionate and that she's not letting enough people in. But it turns out in 2009, this happened already under the Labour government. Jack Straw did the same thing. He tried to have a revision.
Yeah.
So it's not totally news.
And Jack Straw's revision obviously didn't go through, or we wouldn't be in the mess we're in now. But I mean, it really is a changed world from when these rules were set, and now with jet travel, with these Chinese inflatable boats coming across the channel carrying anybody who pays people traffickers. I mean, there's a whole industry set up to exploit these rules with NGOs and human rights lawyers coaching people on how to claim asylum when they're clearly not actually eligible.
And I think an interesting thing, and I say this nicely, is it's no longer such a big deal to say you're gay. In 1951, you said you were gay. It was like, might have been, I mean, I know it's a death sentence in some countries, but around here, you get taken out for drinks.
Yeah, there's some jeopardy attached to it in 1951, whereas now it's celebrated.
But the most important...
Sorry.
No, sorry.
Sorry. Were you listening? The thing is, it's not compassionate to let people come in these boats, is it? That's the thing. And as you've said many times, if we had one round of Rwanda, it might stop some of the travelling. And I think that would be more compassionate.
What's the bigger question? Sorry.
Go on.
The bigger question is, why do they want so many immigrants to come? And the bigger question is, one, is because this country has incredibly bad demographics. It's not as bad as other countries, but people aren't having kids, and they need people to work in the pret-a-manger's to give the rich people money.
Well, you know, the elites, like politicians, business, people who own businesses and factories, it's cheaper for them to import working-age people who will work for less than to grow children from birth in the UK. It's very expensive to grow a child from birth. I'm doing it right now. It's a wonderful experience, but I'm not going to pretend it's cheap. Whereas, you can just let people come across in boats, stick them straight in the factories.
And you hope that they're gay, because the gay people are better workers, they're good-looking, and
they don't have time out from the workforce to have kids.
And they're not sitting, and they're not at home with some woman saying, why don't you spend more time with me? Why don't you, why don't we go visit my mother?
Moving on, we've got The Guardian, and criminal gangs are helping to solve the staffing problem in the UK's prisons. Isn't that nice of them, Lewis?
It is nice. This is a shocking story that criminal gangs are sending in recruits as prison officers. The union warns. This is the union, called the Prison Officers Association, I guess, is saying there are corrupt officers that are sent into the prisons to sell drugs and sell phones. And here's their own union ratting on these people. I assume that they're members of
the union. Well, they say the more common thing is that once you get in, you start doing it.
Yeah.
Apparently, you might end up in a relationship with one of the inmates. And
that was back in the day.
Then you get slip-sliding into this world. And we always say, don't we, that when people go to prison, it's a school of crime. So it turns out everyone can attend.
Like, even for the prison officers.
The officers.
Yeah, because HMP Berwyn in North Wales, 18 female guards were fired and 3 were jailed for having relationships with prisoners.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, then doing all the stuff like smuggling and cell phones and whatever else prisoners like Fabergé eggs. I don't know what else.
Well, women love prisoners.
Do they?
They do, because they know where they are.
Yeah, they can. They know they can get away from them if they.
They're not doing any other checks.
Well, they might be doing another prison person. Anyway, I think this is going to be the new gap year because apparently you don't have to go for very long. You can make a fortune. They start on 30 grand.
And how old are they? Say how old they are.
Well, they used to be older. It used to be a minimum age of 25 for a prison officer. Then they went to 21.
I thought they used to be just, you know, fat old men rattling the bars with a truncheon.
Of course, that's what no, but now it can be 18-year-olds. So. Yeah, because they need to get more people in. It's not a very popular job, but it's really well paid, and now you can make more money from crime. So
you're not supposed to, though.
Well, no.
I mean, although it is listed as a perk here, also they're doing online interviews, which sound easier to pass than a real interview.
That's what they're saying. Yeah, people that can't even look you in the eye. I mean, madness.
Moving on, we've got The Guardian again, and socialists are furious at government plans to reduce Britain's energy dependence on Russia. Cressida.
UK go-ahead for North Sea oil and gas field angers environmental groups and people that can read. OK, so the project Rosebank Field Development Plan has got the go-ahead, so we're going to be able to have our own oil. It's going to be 500 million barrels of oil in this.
That's a lot.
So much oil, I can't even imagine it. What's it like? Well, it's the amount... You'd get the same amount of carbon dioxide if you ran 56 coal-fired power stations for a year. So I don't know if that helps. It's a lot, is the point.
That's a lot of oil. And that's oil we won't have to import from overseas. Although people are saying it's going to be sold at market rates, blah, blah, blah. But it's surely going to, you know, marginally reduce those market rates because it's going to come onto the market.
Yeah. I mean, this is a problem if you believe in climate change. If you don't believe in climate change, this is good news. This is a problem if you want British people to freeze to death. It's a problem. If it's not a problem, it is a problem because it's going to stop British people from freezing to death.
Yeah, it's going to help us transition to green energy. You know, in the meantime, before everybody's got their own solar panels, which I'm sure work really well in Dundee, people are going to need to heat their homes and have nice hot showers, maybe cook some food, you know, some of the basic things. I know the World Economic Forum doesn't want us to have those luxuries, but, you know, instead of, you know, sitting in a damp cell eating a bug patty, we can enjoy the incredible lifestyle that the exploitation of fossil fuels has given us.
I think enjoy is too strong a word for a grandmother who doesn't have to wear 3 sweaters and die in a cold flat.
For you, is this all about getting grandmothers to remove layers of clothing? I knew there was an ulterior motive. Anyway, we've got the Mail now, and with all the focus on Donald Trump's legal affairs and investigations, we forget that Biden is facing his own impeachment inquiry, Lewis.
Yes, and they did a poll. This was a poll that was done about this. You know, how bad... Do you believe Joe Biden and Hunter Biden? And this story, before I get into it... I think it needs a bit more of, and I worked out with Cressida, I tried to. It said that more of half of all Americans believe that Joe Biden was involved in son Hunter Biden's business dealings, including a majority of independents. Yeah. Which is quite interesting because they make it seem like Hunter Biden was the mastermind of this thing and not Joe Biden, who's been a criminal for years and years and years. Or alleged criminal.
Well, I think the inquiry, the Comer inquiry...
basically proved it because he had money sent to his house in his account.
They've dug out various evidence, which is pretty compelling. So, yeah, they found that President Biden's Delaware home was listed as the beneficiary anniversary address of 2 wire transfers that Hunter received from China. And they've received various members of Joe Biden's family. Obviously, the money doesn't go straight to the big guy, but various members of his family have received millions of dollars from countries such as China, Romania, Ukraine, obviously, where Hunter Biden was employed for $50,000 a month to smoke crack.
Can I ask my question?
Yeah.
Which is this. It said that 92% of Republicans think that Joe Biden is dodgy, right?
Yeah.
But only 11% of Democrats. So there's a huge divide. This is like the war in America. Huge divide. But a huge swath of Americans, like over 40% in every single category, thinks that Joe Biden is dodgy. Why only 11% of Democrats?
I think it's because the left-wing media deliberately obfuscate and bury stories that are critical of Joe Biden and that dig into this. I mean, James Comer, when they announced this inquiry, he had trouble getting the media to even look at the evidence, even though it's an official, House inquiry. And I mean, stories like the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, which was proven to be absolutely true, absolutely bona fide, was buried, and there was collusion between the Democrats.
No, he's arguing. He's doing key stage 4 maths, and he's been doing it for an hour now.
Yeah.
He's arguing the maths of the story.
Right.
He thinks that it doesn't add up to 100%.
It doesn't add up. There's some math guy out there that it doesn't add up. When you have like half of men and half of women and half of young people and half of old people, half of everybody thinks he's dodgy.
Yeah.
Surely that's more than 11% Republican.
No, because it's 11 and 90.
Democrats identify as cats.
Oh, so they don't include his old people. They don't include. This is something.
Anyway, when people say they believe that he did it, they might, or that they don't believe it, what they're really doing is just giving their political opinions, aren't they? It doesn't mean they've necessarily looked into the.
No, I'm saying
in their heart they may actually have a different opinion. This is just what they've made a moving on. We'll see if we can squeeze this one in quickly. It's The Guardian now, and it's bad news for the Conservatives. Even the Conservatives don't like them. Cressida.
Conservative peer says party does not deserve to win the next election. So Lord Harris of Peckham, known for his Harris Academy schools, he said he's lost faith in the party because of what they've done over the past 3 years. And he talks about the NHS. He says they were supposed to build 40 new hospitals. Where are they? He lists a bunch of stuff they've done. He's also been giving money to Rachel Reeves. So imagine having so much money that you give $5,000 to a political party you don't believe in.
That's nothing. In America, amazing. That's nothing. People are giving 20, 40. That criminal Sam Bankman-Fried, or possibly criminal, he gave $40 million to Democrats.
He specifically says he's not a Labour
This country needs to think bigger, really, 5,000.
We need bigger.
It's an embarrassment.
Political graft.
Yeah, and I just want to do a shout-out to Lord Harris of Peckham, because he runs academy schools, including East Dulwich Peckham, and another one, I think, Forest Hill Harris, where my children went to school. So two of my children. So a shout-out to East Dulwich.
Interesting.
Harris boys.
Fantastic. You did a great job with your children.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it for part 2. But coming up, we've got Elton John slamming Suella, a racist toddler group, and jab disinformation with a twist. See you after the weather.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Storm Agnes is continuing to provide some quite blustery, very strong winds. Those winds really peaking throughout this evening. Through the Irish Sea, still the potential for 65, 75 mile an hour winds along some very exposed coastal areas and over hills. So do continue to take care. It will be accompanied by some heavy pulses of rain pushing across northern England up into Scotland. Generally elsewhere across Northern Ireland, Wales, southern half of England, it will turn drier into the second half of the night, and the winds will slowly begin to ease out. But there's enough breeze around to really mix up the air, and that will prevent temperatures from dropping too much at all. So a relatively mild start to Thursday. Whilst the strongest winds will be easing tomorrow, it will still be a fairly breezy day for many of us. But once the rain across the far north clears off, a good chunk of us should see a largely dry day, still with a fair amount of cloud around, some bright intervals trying to push their way through before this rain begins to spread its way in from the west later on. Temperatures generally around 17 to 19 degrees Celsius. On Friday, we start to see this area of high pressure want to build its way in from the south. So low pressure is still clinging on in the north, and that will continue to provide some gusty winds at times for parts of Scotland, continuing to bring some showers as well. But once the rain in the far southeast does clear its way off on Friday, a good amount of England, Wales and southern half of Northern Ireland as well should see a fairly fine day with some sunny intervals in the mixture as well. Will be, though, relatively changeable as we head into the weekend. Some showers and longer spells of rain for some of us. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
What didn't we say?
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Times now, and lots of Gen Zers, if that's what they're called, identify as gay. Still, it must be hard for young people to come out as straight in today's society, Lewis.
It is. Well, it's pretty easy for me. You know, once I got out of school, it says 1 in 10 members of Generation Z, which are 16 to 24. I mean, I'm so old, I've lost track of all these things. Now identify as gay or bisexual, double the rate 5 years ago. 1 in 10, so 10%. And but they're between 16 and 24. Everybody has their gay years. You know, Louis Schaefer had.
It's like ancient Greece.
Yes, I don't want to talk about my gay years, but they were some. They were the best.
Don't show us any Polaroids.
They were the best gay years. But the shocking thing to me is there's only 2.7% of the entire population in. Is this in America?
No, I think it's in the UK.
In the UK?
ONS, that's us.
Right.
Office for
So, and
National
your people in this country are even more loose morally because you don't have Jesus in your lives. And but it's a heathen. It's a feminist, heathen, divorce-ridden country. And I say that lovingly.
He's dropping some truth bombs tonight,
yeah.
President.
It's a feminist, heathen, divorce-ridden country.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And fat,
do you think
and
it might
fat.
just be that it's quite fashionable to be gay? And
Yeah, obviously.
that people feel more compassionate if they say it. They like the idea of inclusivity. There's a lovely bit of stand-up by Tom Ward at the Apollo where he says if you haven't had any gay activity for a long time, he explores the idea that maybe you should have to renew your certificates. And I would be very sorry I've murdered that, Tom, but I would be very interested to know how much action is going on. I'm not that interested. I don't want to hear anything, but I'm questioning whether this is actually what's really going on.
Yeah, so you're questioning, not gay. But it is interesting because I've noticed a lot of comedians over the last few years have come out and said, I'm queer identifying. I've never had any same-sex action, but I'm queer identifying. And I'm like, I don't respect that. I think you've got to put the miles in to claim that label. You can't just swoop in when all the battles are won and it's all fun and parades.
Yeah.
And then say, yeah, I'm gay.
Well, that's what's so shocking, because everyone is going around saying that they're gay. I mean, you know, at my age, you get more flexible.
He's always,
you get more flexible. All you want is a hug, and you want a smile from somebody who's not going to take your kids away from you.
Right. We've got the Independent now, and Elton John criticised Suella for saying some asylum seekers pretend to be gay to get into the UK. Well, it's not like he ever pretended to have a different sexuality, Cressida.
Yeah.
Very good. I don't know enough about his career. I'm sure that's very funny. I don't get the reference.
You're too young, Cressida. You don't remember this.
Thank you. Elton John and Ian McKellen lead backlash over Braverman's call to crack down on gay asylum seekers. So they're saying that she's been making hateful comments because she's saying... Well, I'll tell you exactly what she said. She said, we will not be able to sustain an asylum system... If in effect being gay or a woman and fearful of discrimination in your country of origin is sufficient to qualify for protection. So she's saying the bar can't be that low, because if it is, the whole system will collapse.
Yeah.
And of course other people are saying, no, if you're gay in certain countries, you face terrible discrimination, and I don't doubt that. But what's to stop? Isn't it like... The story's not necessarily about gay people so much as straight people pretending to be gay.
Exactly, yeah. So it's one of the ways that people are coached by, we were talking about it earlier, human rights lawyers and things. So you pretend to be gay, or you pretend to be Christian, or something that'll mean that you're persecuted if you get sent back to Iraq or, wherever it is. So people do it. And in fact, Suella, from the way I see it, is actually keeping the gay community safe by ensuring that the cultures that are hostile to LGBTQ people aren't allowed into the country as much. I mean, we've seen, like the Reading knife attacker. We've seen some horrific attacks in Ireland as well on people just for being gay by ideologues from overseas cultures.
I don't know what to do. I think this is just a diversion from the big picture, which is they're letting in people into the country because they believe in an open borders policy. They believe in no nations. They believe in they believe that they want workers to come in who are, like you say, are fully formed adults.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy for plenty of people to come in if they all stay at Elton John's house. Anyway, we've got The Guardian now, and Glasgow is going to get the first room in the UK where you can go and take drugs. I hate to shock anyone, but I don't think it's actually the first one, Lewis.
Well, it's not even, the whole city, I think, is a place you can go take drugs. And I think you need drugs. I've been to Glasgow. It's a lovely place. My kids are half Scottish, and so I love Scotland.
Finish your original comment was you need drugs to get through a day in Glasgow.
That's what I meant. How did you know that's what I meant? Yeah.
And read the headline, please.
The headline is Glasgow gets go-ahead to open the first drug consumption room. They're basically saying if you go and take drugs, inject bad Class A drugs inside in this room, that the police won't come and they'll let you do it. And I'm almost in favor of that because I'm against the penalization of people for taking drugs. I'm basically a libertarian.
Yeah.
And I don't think, and anything that small of drugs, it just by making it illegal, you allow the government to go searching people's homes and digging in their pockets, and that's wrong.
Yeah, and also as a comedian going to places like this, you can get that ego rush from a round of applause, even if it's just people trying to find a vein.
That's so dark. I don't know. I thought the whole point with legalising drugs was so people didn't get their houses burgled. And, like, this doesn't help that at all because they still have to bring their own drugs. They're not supplying it.
Yeah.
You have to bring your own drugs. They will test them for you, so that's nice, isn't it? Just to make
and
sure.
also, if you live next door or within, a few blocks, you're probably not going to be delighted about this shooting.
But keep in mind, it's a very serious issue because people are dying like crazy.
Yeah,
and,
especially in Scotland.
In Scotland, of fentanyl or whatever the latest drug is. So people need to be safe. So what they should do is they should just legalize all drugs, legalize anything that's smaller than a house. You should be allowed to own.
Right. Inject yourself with anything smaller than a house.
If you went out,
problem solved.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Why is that funny?
Moving on, we've got the mail
Why is that
now,
funny,
and we've
Cressida?
seen lots of spaces set up for people of colour, but it's illegal to do it for people of no colour, Cressida.
Absolutely. Canadian police launch probe into adverts for whites-only moms and tots sessions for parents who want to escape forced diversity and join other proud parents of European children. I mean, is this for real? I feel like this is a stunt. I'll give you some of the information from the poster. So the poster that caused outrage, it read, "Are you looking for somewhere your children can play with others that look like them? Are they tired of being a minority in their schools or daycare?" Don't you think this might just be somebody that's poking fun at wokery? I mean, this can't be real, can it?
Because this is, Lewis, I mean, Chris has made a great point. It just reads like one of those sort of safe space for people of colour type groups, but they've just flipped it to sort of highlight how absurd it is to separate people based on race.
Well, I know that white people wouldn't be that petty. They're much better. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, my God.
That's what you're saying? That's what you're saying?
Absolutely not what
I'm saying.
I think this is like that trans teacher with the enormous breasts where the paparazzi keep getting pictures of him without his...
Her, you bigot.
Her, sorry, keep getting pictures of her without her enormous breasts. I wondered if it was along those lines.
I can also say this takes place in Canada, which I am a Canada denier. I'm not sure that Canada exists.
OK, if it does, I'm sure it's not round. We've got the Times now, and there's been misinformation about jabs published in the media. This sounds like one for you, Lewis.
Yeah, well, it's not the jabs that you think. It's Iceland boss apologizes for HIV needle attack claim. If you remember, I don't know when we were doing that show, but it was the guy is saying that it's really bad for workers nowadays with shoplifting and everything, and that there's been needle attacks. People who have HIV have been attacking other people and giving the HIV.
Yeah, attacking the shop workers. And I think three shop staff were infected with HIV, which was shocking when we read it.
It is shocking.
But it turns out it's not true.
No, it's not true. His name is Richard Walker, and he says it's not true. And he said the last documented case was in 1999. And I will go so far as to say this: people do die, and there have been people who have died saying that I died of AIDS. I do not believe there is such a thing as HIV.
You're not an HIV denier as well.
I am an HIV denier, and I'll go one step further. I'm a virus denier. I don't think.
Well, I believe in HIV, and I am stunned that somebody would give out that information about their staff anyway.
Yeah.
Like, regardless, and you'd want to be sure, wouldn't you? I mean, how does a mistake like this happen? This is very silly.
Yeah, and also, some people have complained that it, raises the stigma attached to people with HIV because it makes it appear as if it's, easily spread, when in fact I don't think there's any cases of needle stick injury causing HIV since 1999.
Right, exactly. So what does that say? I mean, you're not old enough to remember how afraid we were of AIDS. Yeah. Very similar to COVID. Very similar. And there are lots of people, I don't know whether it's true or not. Please don't believe me when I'm saying this stuff. A lot of it is just hypothesis.
I do remember, I've seen the like in a museum or something, the big tombstone.
Lewis is a conspiracy theorist, but he has absolutely no faith in his own conspiracy theories. We've got to respect that. Anyway, that's part 3 done, but coming up, we've got councils banning everything, shoplifting mums, and why men think about the Roman Empire every day. Te brevi tempore, legionary.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Put in your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Kicking things off with the Mail, and councils have been given the power to make anything they want illegal. This sounds great, Cressida.
Brilliant. I'm going to start working for a council. From alarming chalk markings to feeding the birds and turning up the TV volume, how council zealots are outlawing innocuous acts using absurd diktat powers amid calls for cowboy laws to be scrapped. These cowboy laws are, they're like warnings they're giving people, community protection warnings. It's one before you get a community protection notice, which is like, stop it. This is just, hey. It's not as much, but it's pretty bad. So they're stopping people doing all these things. They stopped one man from flying his model aeroplane in a 2-acre field. I mean, what's that all about?
Was he doing it annoyingly?
Well, he obviously annoyed somebody, maybe somebody that didn't like Joy, I don't know. There's a former model who was banned from wearing her bikini in her own garden. It's a bit confusing because it goes on to say she's in her 80s and she's also been banned from staring at the neighbours and looking at them through the window. So there's a grey area there, isn't it?
It sounds like there is a grey area.
More questions to be asked, but the point is we can't have the councils interfering and telling people off for slamming doors.
Yeah, basically what it is it's globalism come local.
Yeah.
It's a man's, and the British philosophy or right to life is a man's home is his castle. And their point of view is we're going to tell you what to do in your castle, which means you will own nothing and be happy.
It's the winnowing away of our rights.
I blame the Germans and the French and their hairy armpits.
which could be why somebody complained about that bikini. I mean, we just don't know.
She's 81 years old.
Yeah.
One thing about getting older as a man is like everyone's looking good. And the skin is so soft.
Moving on. We've got the Metro now, and there's a crime wave sweeping the nation led by the worst section in society, middle-class mums. Lewis, tell us more.
Yeah, middle-class moms who confess to shoplifting to get a buzz. And it's an article about these women, middle-class women, like Caroline Parker, 53. She doesn't have any reason to steal, it says, but she steals anyway because her husband's she's a retired office manager from Gloucestershire. And then there was another woman, Lucy Collins, 45, a different stage of life. She's got a young child, but she's from Hertfordshire, and her insurance broke her husband. She just likes to steal the fruit and veg. And then there's this shoplifter, Claire Johnson, and she just is very light-fingered since lockdown began. And this is like shocking. I'm thinking, how do they get these British people to actually admit their, and give their names in this thing? And then you find that the very last sentence, all names have been changed in this article.
Right.
It's a total non-story that besmirches middle-class women.
But doesn't it? I mean, Cressida, I don't know if you've ever shoplifted anything.
I haven't. Well, I'm not quite at this stage of life yet,
Right.
but who knows, it might kick in. One of them's called Nina Tiara. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't know. Susie Orbach, who's one of my favourite psychotherapists.
That's her made-up name.
No, that's her real name. You can look her up. She says
Yeah.
nobody walks into the psychotherapist's office with nothing,
You're-
which is what's going on here, isn't it? There's clearly something wrong with them.
No, they're not people. That's what's wrong with them. They've been made up by the Metro.
We've got the Telegraph now. No, they've just changed the names, Lewis. It's a common journalistic...
Lie. It's a lie.
The Telegraph now.
You have
we
to
know
believe
that
them.
Most men fantasize about the Roman Empire once a day. I fantasize about killing Lewis with one of those big forks.
Boo.
So here's a woman to ruin the fantasy. Cressida.
Maybe I'm a man. I don't know. Mary Beard weighs in on macho men's TikTok fixation on Roman Empire. So it was recently discovered that there was a TikTok phenomenon of women asking their partners, do you think about Rome every day, and filming them? They're like, yeah, I think about Rome every day. I love it, or whatever. I don't know. And she's come along. I'm a bit confused here. I love Mary Beard. I watch her a lot on YouTube. I think she's great. But she begins by saying, men need to rethink this because they think that Rome was a safe place to be macho. So you think she's going to say, actually, it was full of women who were quite bossy. And then she starts talking about how we all think that Carrie Johnson bossed Boris around and that that's a mistake as well. So I don't know what her point is.
Right.
But I think there are lots of bossy women, and that's our job, isn't it? To, as a species, we've evolved for...
You're not saying that, Cressida.
I am saying that. Women are picky.
Cressida.
It's important.
Cressida, we're in the midst of a crisis at the company here over inappropriate remarks about women. And just because you're a woman.
I am, sorry.
Doesn't mean you can get away with that. I disagree with her. I happen to have a girlfriend. I've been married. And I think that women are just the right amount of bossiness. They're not too much or too little.
But do you think getting back to the actual story, which we like to talk about once in a while on the show, don't you think that maybe the films have overplayed how fun and macho the Roman times were, when in fact a lot of it would have been thankless drudgery?
Well, yes, but you could say that about modern soap operas, couldn't you? Probably. I just don't know.
Well, you can say that about every era. The fact is, we're living in the most feminized era ever.
And don't civilizations do this before they fall?
Yes,
We've seen it in the French, before the French Revolution, the men were wearing wigs and makeup and stuff.
Yeah.
And now we're entering the same era. We're in the Weimar Republic. Anyway, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Thursday's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with stabbed to death in her uniform on the way to school. The Guardian has HMRC investigating tax affairs of one of the Tory party's largest donors. The Eye leads with Labour U-turn on plan to axe private school charity status. The Times has Number 10 backs threat to leave rights convention. The Telegraph has officer who shot jailbreak gangster faces sack. And the Daily Star has grow your own nashers. And those were your front pages. And that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Cressida Wetton and Lewis Schaefer. I'll be back tomorrow with Nick Dixon in the hot seat and Josh Howie next to me riding shotgun. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, please stay tuned for breakfast and have a great night or a great morning. I've been Leo Kears. Good night.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Storm Agnes is continuing to provide some quite blustery, very strong winds. Those winds really peaking throughout this evening. Through the Irish Sea, still the potential for 65, 75 mile an hour winds along some very exposed coastal areas and over hills. So do continue to take care. It will be accompanied by some heavy pulses of rain pushing across northern England up into Scotland. Generally elsewhere across Northern Ireland, Wales, southern half of England, it will turn drier into the second half of the night and the winds will slowly begin to ease out. But there's enough breeze around to really mix up the air, and that will prevent temperatures from dropping too much at all. So a relatively mild start to Thursday. Whilst the strongest winds will be easing tomorrow, it will still be a fairly breezy day for many of us. But once the rain across the far north clears off, a good chunk of us should see a largely dry day, still with a fair amount of cloud around, some bright intervals trying to push their way through before this rain begins to spread its way in from the west later on. Temperatures generally around 17 to 19 degrees Celsius. On Friday, we start to see this area of high pressure want to build its way in from the south. So low pressure is still clinging on in the north, and that will continue to provide some gusty winds at times for parts of Scotland, continuing to bring some showers as well. But once the rain in the far southeast does clear its way off on Friday, a good amount of England, Wales and southern half of Northern Ireland as well should see a fairly fine day with some sunny intervals in the mixture as well. Will be, though, relatively changeable as we head into the weekend. Some showers and longer spells of rain for some of us. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking